Hi, y'all. No, it's been a while. I kind of life happened and I had to do other things. I really didn't think this was going to, prove anything. But thank you for coming to my podcast, um, the Loretta Nash Show, and Laura's blog. Um, okay, I'm still reading. If you hadn't know or hadn't been here for a while, or where I stopped in Hiawatha, the book of the song Hiawatha. Yeah, the story of Hiawatha. I had to remember what book I got. And we are at 13, Blessing the Cornfield. I know that, and you're going to have to forgive my weird reading. And I'm going to get this ruler out to help me a little bit because these lines do, even in a regular book, go whoppadappy. Okay, so 13, Blessing the Cornfield. Many are the pleasant days that followed the wedding of Minnehaha and Hiawatha. All the tribes were at peace with one another, and the hunters roved wherever they chose, built their birch canoes, hunted and fished, and trapped the beavers without once hearing the war cry or the hiss of a hostile arrow. The women made sugar from the sap of the maple trees, gathered the wild rice, and dressed in skins of deer and beaver, while all around the peaceful village waved green and sunny fields of corn. Once when the corn was being planted by the women, the wise and thoughtful Hiawatha said to Minnehaha, "Tonight you shall bless the cornfields, and draw around them a magical circle to keep out the mildew and the insects. In the night, when everybody is asleep and none can hear you or see you, rise from your bed, lay aside your clothes, and walk in the darkness around the fields of corn that you have planted. Do this, and the fields shall be more fruitful, and the magic circle of your footsteps cannot be crossed by either worm or insect. For the dragonfly and the spider and the grasshopper are the and the sorry and the caterpillar all will know that you have walked around the cornfield, and they will not dare enter." While Hiawatha spoke, Kanijiki, king of the ravens, sat with his band of black robbers in the treetops near at hand, and they laughed so loud that the words of Hiawatha that the treetops shook and rattled. "Caw," shouted the ravens. "Listen to this wise man. Hear the plots of Hiawatha. We will fly over the magic circle and eat as much corn as we can hold. When the night when night had fallen dark and black over the fields and woodlands, and when all the Indians were asleep fast, Minnehaha rose from her bed of branches, laid aside her garments, and walked safely among the cornfield, drawing the magic circle by her light footsteps closely around them. No one but the midnight saw her, and no one but the whirlpool heard the panting of her bosom. So it says, yep, bosom. For the darkness wrapped its cloak closely about her as she walked, and the dragonfly and the grasshopper, the spider and the caterpillar all knew that they could not pass the magic circle of Minnehaha's footsteps. When morning came, however, Kahiki gathered about him all his black and racily crew, racily crew of ravens and jays and crows and blackbirds, shrieking with laughter and with harsh cries, all ravenous clamor. They all left the treetops and flapping eagerly down upon the cornfields. Caw, caw, they shrieked. We will dig up the corn from the soft earth, and we will eat all we can hold, in spite of Minnehaha and her foolish circle. But Hiawatha had heard the ravens as they laughed at him from among the treetops. He had risen before daybreak and had covered the cornfields with snares, and at that moment he was hiding in the woods until all the evil birds should alight on the field and begin their wicked feast. They saw with the rush of They came with a rush of wings and hungry cries, settled down upon the cornfield, and began to dig and devise to leave and scratch the earth of for the corn that they had planted there. And with all their skills and cunning, they could not see anything was amiss until their claws were caught in Hiawatha's snares, and they were helpless. Then Hiawatha left his hiding place among the bushes and strode towards the captive ravens, and his appearance was so awful that the bravest of them hopped and shrieked and flapped his wings in terror. He walked among them and killed them to the right and to the left in tens and twenties without mercy. He hung their bodies on poles to serve as scarecrows and to frighten away all other thieves and robbers from the sacred fields of corn. Only one of the ravens was spared by Hiawatha, and that was Kahigi, the ruler of them all. Hiawatha tied him with a string and fastened him to the ridgepole of his wigwam, saying, Kahigi, you are cause of this mischief, and I am going to hold you as a warning for all the ravens left alive. If they light upon the cornfields and begin again their wicked thievery, I will kill you and hang your body on the pole as an example. And Hiawatha left Kahagi tied fast to the ridge pole of the wigwam, hoping and tugging angrily, hopping and tugging angrily at his strings and croaking in vain for his friends to come and set him free. Summer passed and all the air became warm and soft with a haze of early autumn. The corn had grown tall and yellow, and the ears were almost bursting from their sheaths, when old Nokus said to Minnehaha, let us gather the harvest and strip the ripe ears from their husks and tassels. And Minnehaha and Nokomis went through the village, calling all the women and the maidens and the young men to come forth and help them husk the corn. All together they went to the cornfields, and the old men and the warriors sat in the shades at the edges of the forest, smoked and looked on in approval, while the young men and maidens stripped the ears of corn and laughed at and sing merrily over their labor. Whenever a youth or maiden found a crooked ear, they would laugh even louder, crept about the cornfield as weak old men bent amongst double with age. But when some lucky maiden found a blood red ear in the husk, they would cry, "Oh, Nushka, you have a sweetheart." And the old men nodded in approval as they smoked beneath the pine trees. Okay, now we're at 14. It's called picture writing. Okay, in those days, the Indians had no way of writing down what they thought and could only tell each other their message and dreams and wisdom in spoken words. The deeds of the hunters and the thoughts of wise men were remembered for a little while, but soon were talked about less often. And when the old men died, there was none left to tell about what had happened in the past. The grave posts had no markings on them, nor were the Indians able to tell who were buried in the graves. All they knew was that some one in their tribe, some former wise man or hunter, or some beautiful maiden of other days, laid buried there. And Hiawatha was much troubled that the Indians did not know the graves of their own fathers, and could not tell the men who should come after them about the wonderful things that had taken place long before they were born. Hias, Hio, Hiawatha spent many days long in the deep forest trying to invent some ways to some way by which the Indians could always know what had happened in the past, thereby tell secrets to each other and send messages without the risk of having them forgotten by the messenger. And after a great deal of thought, Hiawatha discovered one of the finest of all the wide world, a secret that had changed the lives of all Indians since his time. He took different colored paints and began to draw strange figures on the bark of the birch tree, and every figure had some meaning that the red man would always remember. For the great Manto, god of all Indians, Hiawatha painted the picture of an egg with different colored points towards the north and the south and the east and the west, to show that the Great Spirit was watching over the world and could be found everywhere at once. For the evil spirit, Hiawatha painted a picture of a great serpent to show how the evil spirit was as deadly and as wicked and treacherous as any snake that crawled in the green marsh grasses. For life and death, Hiawatha drew two round spots and painted one of them white and the other black. The white one was meant for life, because white is clear and fair to look upon. Black is meant for death, because black is hideous and dark. And Hiawatha painted the sun and the moon and all the stars of heaven. He painted forests and mountains, lakes and rivers, animals and birds. For the earth he drew a straight line, like the line of the horizon, and for the sky he drew a curved line, like a bow. He filled the space between with white paint that was to mean that white light, white, which means the white light of day. He painted he painted a point on each side, one for the sunrise and one for the sunset. He drew a number of stars to represent the night, and Hiawatha drew all sorts of pictures for men and wigwam. Okay, Hiawatha drew all sorts of pictures of men and wigwams and bows and arrows and canoes, each with its own meaning, until he had drawn different figures for different thoughts of men. He called upon the Indians to come and see what he had painted, and he said to them, "Look and learn the meaning of each of these different figures. Go and paint upon the caves of those whom you remember some mark that will always show who it is that lies there buried." And the Indians painted on the grave posts of the graves they had not yet forgotten figures of bears, reindeers, turtles, cranes, and beavers, each of them inventing some sign by which they might also always know his dead. And for these signs many of the Indians have been remembering to this day. On the birch canoes the Indians drew all different shapes, and the brightest of them all was the figure of love. It was painted in deep scarlet because scarlet is the strongest color of all. The color meant, "I am greater than all others," for the Indians believed that love is mightier than life or death and more dangerous than either war or hunting. Other figures were also painted there, and by looking at the pictures drawn by the Indians, you can tell who he was, and what family he came from, and whether he was a stern or cruel, or loving and kind-hearted. For the Indians were apt to paint the things they thought about the most. Many were the gifts of Hiawatha gave his people, but when he taught them how to paint their thoughts, he gave them a greater gift than any other. Okay, now we're in 15. It says Hiawatha's lamentation, which is he's crying. Okay. When Hiawatha lived, there were many evil spirits on the earth, and these evil spirits were very jealous of the friendship between Hiawatha and Cucubus. "If we only can get Cucubus in our power," they plotted, "we can kill him, and when he is dead, Hiawatha cannot do so much good to all the tribes of men. For Cucubus helped him like a brother, and together they are much stronger than us." The evil spirits joined to destroy both Chichibas and Hiawatha, and they laid many traps and thought of many schemes to catch the two friends off their guard. Hiawatha was so wise that he knew all of this plotting, and often said to Chichibus, "O my brother, stay with me always, for together the evil spirits cannot do us any harm. But Chichibus was young and heedless. He had not fear. He did not fear the evil spirits. He laughed at Hiawatha and said to him, "Harm and evil never come near me, my Hiawatha. Have no fear on my account." But Hiawatha shook his head and feared the most, all the more because Chicabus Chibibos feared so little. Once in the winter time, when the big sea water was covered with ice and snow, Chicabus was hunting a buck with antlers, and the buck ran across the frozen lake. While the excitement of hunting, Chicabus followed him and ran far out from the shore upon the treacherous ice, where the evil spirits were waiting for him. When they saw that he was far enough from land, they broke the ice, and Chicabus fell with a crash and splashed in the frozen water of the lake. Even then he might have saved himself and climbed upon the ice, but the strong, cruel water god, the god of the Dakota, Dakota, Dacotas, Dakotas, wrapped his cold, wet arms around the body of Chicabus and dragged him down through the dark black water to the bottom. There the water god buried him beneath the mud and sand, so that his body might not rise to the surface, and the evil spirits danced for joy to the death of Chicabus. "We have killed him," they shouted gleefully to one another. "We have killed the sweetest singer in the world and the dearest friend of Hiawatha." From all the headlands on the shore, Hiawatha had seen Chicabus plunge into the lake, and he heard the wicked shouting of the evil spirits. He gave a cry of sorrow that the forest trembled, and the wolves on the prairies raised their heads and listened, then howled and answered. Where the hoarse thunder stirred itself, hoarse thunder stirred itself among the mountains and awakened all the echoes to his cry. Then Hiawatha smeared his face with black paint and the color of sorrow and death. He covered his head with his robe and sat for 7 long weeks in his wigwam, grieving for the murder of Chicabus. And the fir trees sad waved their dark green branches to and fro above his head, and sighing as mournfully as Hiawatha. Spring came, and all the birds and animals, even the rivets and the flowers and the grasses, looked in vain for Chicabus. The bluebird sang a song of sorrow from the treetops. The robin echoed it from the silence of the thicket, and the whippoorwill took up a sad refrain at night, a wailed it far and wide through all the woodland. "Chicabus, Chicabus," murmured every living thing, and all the echoes sighed in answer until the whole world seemed to mourn the lost singer. Then the wise men other tribes, the medicine men, the men of magic, came to Hiawatha as as he sat in sorrow in his hut, and they walked before him in a grave procession to drive the sadness from his heart. Each of them carried a pouch of healing, made of beaver skins or lynx, otter, filled with roots and herbs of wonderful power to cure all disease and to drive the evil spirits of grief from the heart and mind. To and fro they walked until Hiawatha uncovered his head, washed the black paint from his face, and followed the wise men to the sacred lodge that they built beside his wigwam. There they gave to Hiawatha a marvelous drink made of spearmint and yarrow, and all sorts of strange different roots. That sounds spearmint and yarrow sounds kind of good. Tastes pretty good. Okay, let me read it back again. There they gave to Hiawatha a marvelous drink made of spearmint and yarrow, and all sorts of strange and different roots. And when he had drink of this, they began a wild and mystic dance, beating on the small drums that they carried, shaking their pouch of healings in the pouches of healings in the face of Hiawatha. Hiawatha, they shouted in strange voices. Way, ha way, we can cure you, Hiawatha. You can make your song. And they shook their medicine pouches over Hiawatha's head and continued beating on their hollow drums as they circled wildly around him again and again. All at once the sorrow left Hiawatha's heart as the ice is swept from the river in springtime, and like a man awakened from evil dreams, he felt that he was healed, and gazed about him where the medicine men were still dancing. They were trying to summon Chickabis from his grave deep down in the sandy bottoms of the big seawater, for the water god had buried him so deep that his spirit could not go into the land of the dead, but was still in his body, struggling to free itself. And the magic of the wise men was so strong that Chickabis rose, body and all, and stood on the bottom of the lake listening to them. Then the man floated to shore, climbing out upon the bank, and made his way swiftly and silently through the forest to the doorway of the wigwam where the medicine men were singing. Where they shook the curtain, when he shook the curtain of the doorway and peered in upon them, they would not let him enter, but gave him through the opening of the door a burning torch, and told him to light a fire in the land of spirits, so that all who died might see it and find their way thither. And they made Chickabis ruler of the kingdom of the dead. He left the doorway of the wigwam and vanished into the forest. The wise men watched the twinkling of his light until twinkling of his torch until it disappeared. They saw that the branches did not move as he passed, and that the dead leaves and the grass did not bend or rustle beneath his footsteps, and they looked at each other much afraid, because such sights are not good for living men to see. 4 days Chicabus traveled down the pathway of the dead. For 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 his food he ate the dead man's strawberry. He saw many other men struggling underneath heavy burdens of food and skins and wigwams that their friends had given them to use in the land of the spirits, and they groaned beneath this burden. He passed them all, crossed the sad, dark river of death onto the swinging logs that float there, and he came upon the lake of silver, and was carried in a stone canoe over the water to the island of the blessed, where he ruled all the ghosts and shadows. Sorry about the clicking, that my mouth wants to act up. When he had disappeared into the dark forest, Hiawatha left the sacred lodge and wandered eastward and westward, teaching men to use roots and herbs and to cure all disorders. And thus was first made known to the Indians the sacred knowledge of caring for the sick. Okay. I'm going to stop right here because I decided to, make them 3. And that's what I got. You can pick me up at any platinum. And yeah, just I think in January or December, I went on ArtStation. So now my artwork is on ArtStation. I do have prints available, so if you want to go there, and it's on Loretta Nash 1. I've got other places that I still sell on eBay, of course, and because I've noticed that my Lore's blog hadn't really been able. You have to sign up for that. Well, anyway, that's what I got, and everything of what I got, and I hope y'all been doing okay. Me, it's just been busy and all, and things to do. Trying to, keep things up. And I'll see y'all next time then. Let me give a couple of clicks and I'll finish this book out, and then I'll see what I can do about making some more blogs. Okay, uh, oh yeah, keep us in prayers. A lot of things needs to be prayed for, and we need the prayer, as much prayers as you possibly can give us. Just give our names. You don't have to say anything. Just think about us. And I'll see you in the next one. Bye.